So I want to apologize to both you and Jody, Mark, that Kirk didn't look at you once while he was talking. Now, after I volunteered for a long time around here and did a few things and bugged them enough to give me a job, well, no, exactly before I started working, I finally got a thing to do with Mark. It was a situation that came up here in the city where they were trying to even ban herbs and spices and put all sorts of regulations on it, so we were going out around the city putting up tables and giving out flyers. And I was elected to go with Mark, set up a table in front of the library on Denman Street. So I was pumped, to say the least. I'm going out with Mark Emery, so I got some joints rolled, I'm ready to go. We get the table, we go up there, we got all the flyers, and we get the table set up, and we're out there for about a minute. Library people comes up and goes, no, you're not staying here. Mark goes, yeah, we are. Do whatever we want, he said. Okay, let's do whatever we want. So that was good, and then not too long later, the police came by. They said the very same thing, you got to move off here. Mark said, no, I don't have to move off here. This is public property. We have every right to be here, and I'm not moving off. And they said, yes, you are. And they said, no, you're just moving off. And then they pulled up handcuffs to hell. Mark was handcuffed right in front of me, so I'm going, what the fuck am I going to do now? I got a bag of weed in my pocket. I got to step up here to show my medal in front of my bureau. So I step up to this cop and get into his face, and he says, you want to go to jail too? And before he could say that, thank God, Mark says, no, 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 you don't want to go to jail. You got to look after the table. Many times since then, Mark has said, no, to me, you don't have to go to jail. You got to look after the table. The times we've been busted, he's always got me out of it. This time, we were able to get out of it, and we're going to work hard to get Mark out of it. Yeah. We're going to have Mr. Larson come up. You may certainly know him from his political fame. Last week I read in the Metro newspaper that the news story that they'd chosen for that little section was that Dana was allowed to go to a convention in Alberta. Actually descended in Vancouver before Mark Emery came. There was a time before Mark Emery when there was a weed movement in Vancouver, but it was not as cool. But I remember Marius as well in the old days. We had a lot of excitement for the university. He would come with his marijuana flag and march around and stuff. And Chris Bennett was a venerable old man of the marijuana movement to me back then. He'd come with his little piece of hemp fabric and stories of marijuana back in Jesus' time, and we pass around. Hey, wow, it's fabric's real. This is true. Little hemp stacks and things. And looking back at all those years and all those times, it makes me realize how much we've really accomplished over the last 10, 20 years, and how many changes we've really made in this country and around the world, and what our influence has been. And oh God, I don't know. There's a lot of stories, but I remember meeting Mark first time, I guess, with the late, great Ian Hunter was putting on some rally or a pub crawl in Vancouver, and I was heading off to South Africa for 10 weeks, which was a great time. A lot of good weed down there, a lot of good hash. And when I came, and Ian said, oh, I'm going to be opening a store with this guy, Mark Emery, or something. I hadn't really heard of Mark before. I don't know why. I'd heard of Chris Clay and some other people out east there, but we were mostly doing our own thing in Vancouver. And I thought, oh, okay, great. Ian had a lot of flaky ideas, and I thought, well, he's going to open a store. Good luck to him. I hope that works out. And I came back 10 weeks later, and there was this beautiful, tiny little store on Hastings. It was amazing to think now how small it was, what a tiny little place that was, and how huge, multi-level floors, locations, all the things that we have now. But, I started working there for a while with regular staff on holidays. I came in to work behind the counter, a job which I was not very good at all. I'm not made for that kind of work. I think me and another fellow, Mark Bologna, were hired to temporarily. Mark would be out there sleeping in the front lot and working away, and I'd be like sleeping on the front desk there, trying to stay awake. So I didn't get to stay on that job, which was for the best, I think. Mark made a wise decision on that. But what I was good at was writing and editing, and Mark was working on a newsletter, the Marijuana Hemp newsletter. It started off pretty small, and Mark, when he came, had zillions of projects, and managed to offend pretty much everybody in the marijuana movement that was already here, and told us all we were all amateurs and not very good at it. He was going to do it so much better, and he did. And that was, it was interesting seeing all these people, how aggravated they were by Mark, and pretty much all of them ended up working for him eventually. And that's a beautiful thing. And so I started working on that newsletter, and soon we had turned it into Cannabis Culture magazine, and that's how I spent the next 10 years, was working on that with Mark as publisher. And we went through so many raids and so many challenges and so many things. And one of the things I learned from Mark mostly is not to give up and to keep on pushing and to find new ways. You can bounce back from so many challenges and so many things. And if you just keep on going and don't stop, find a new angle, find a new way, and just be persistent, and you'd be amazed what you can get away with. And I've certainly taken that to heart. I'm just thinking of some of the things, the night my daughter was born, I have a daughter named Lily. She's 11 years old. She's a cover girl on Cannabis Culture, and a very early issue there. There's a little child with a big unlit joint in her hand. She'll sign copies for you most certainly. And the night that she was born was the same night that one of the biggest raids that we went through. That was a really defining raid, one that ultimately led to the whole store shutting down for a while and Mark selling everything off and going into the mail order seeds only. It was a very traumatic, difficult raid, and it was a pretty strange karma. My partner at the time, Yana, Lily's mom, she's a lovely woman. She was the manager of the Cannabis Cafe, and I was the editor of Cannabis Culture magazine, and our whole romance was tied up in a lot of that stuff. And that daughter being born that night that raid was happening was some pretty weird karma. Going downstairs and seeing my friends and allies getting punished by the police on TV, and upstairs Anne was giving birth to our child. That was one of those weird karmas. I don't know what it all means, but it was a very magical night in many ways. And although a lot of things changed that night, it also pushed us to new things. And I always, seeing Mark, the pushing into seeds was often in a time of desperation. We got to do something new. We got to find a way to make more money. Put that seed catalog in the magazine, or we're going to start sending seeds to the U.S. or whatever the decision was at that time. And to make that money, to keep things going, pushing things forward. And you don't ever know where it's going to end up, where it's going to be. And I don't think Mark imagined that 10 years later, 15 years later, he'd be sitting here in this room with all these people doing these things. We knew it was going to be a long and strange adventure, but you never really know what's going to happen. And something I've seen about Mark is he always really lives in the present and tries to focus on the present moment in a very kind of Zen master sort of way. Not really worrying too much about anything beyond the next week or the next few hours, really, in terms of getting that money today, or just deal with it, and we'll find those solutions tomorrow on the next day. And getting in debt and having these challenges being really highly motivating in terms of we got to find that money somehow. We got to get to work and get up early and make that happen, and give it all away so we can start it again the next day. So I just also want to say one thing, that we're here and it's sort of like Mark's dying or something terrible is happening, but we should be celebrating because this is really the pinnacle of Mark's career. This is what it's been working towards the whole time that he's been doing these things. And when we prohibit something, or we ban something, we make it stronger than ever before. And whether it's marijuana, and sometimes I wonder if marijuana hadn't been banned, if our culture would be the same as it was, and if somehow this prohibitionary period wasn't necessary for us to really understand how useful this plant can be for us, and that by banning it, they made us somehow stronger. And you know what, that NDP convention that I was at, when they banned me from being there, they made me 100 times stronger. Now the fact that I go to an NDP convention, it's news. Nobody cared before, but now that they banned me, now it's a big deal that I got in without that. And so, you know, when they come and they raid Mark, or they put these challenges against us, it's not fun, and no one wants to do that, and it's not easy for anybody, certainly not for Mark, but it's also, it's part of the process of making these changes, and that by these things happening, it's only going to make Mark more powerful. Like Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader, when you strike him down, stronger than ever before. If these things hadn't happened, Mark's voice would not be able to reach so many people around the world, and we would not be able to do the things that we're doing. And so this attention that it brings, it's a positive thing. And it's not fun for Mark to go to jail, for those of us who love him, and, you know, we can cry our tears at a different place or whatever, but I know we're all going to miss Mark. But it's an important thing that's happening, and by doing this, it's going to bring so many other people that are also hurting out there, that are also in prison, and I don't have these groups around them to help them. People that are alone in jail, there's millions of them all around the world. And Mark is blessed that he has that behind him, and he'll get others every day, and he'll know we're behind him, and he's back. He's going to look out for him each day, and that he can practice as soon as possible. But most marijuana prisoners don't have those people. And so what we're doing here, it's more than just about Mark, and we all recognize that Mark is sacrificing himself for a greater good. And I hope that inspires all of us to also make those sacrifices, and to put some money into this, or to put a little more effort into it, and to work just a little bit harder, because we've seen the terrible things that this war can do to us. And we've seen what kind of things we can do to make a change. And I just hope that Mark being in that jail inspires us to do more, inspires Canadians and Americans and people around the world to do more to end this war. And if that's the case, then every day spent in jail is time well spent. And Mark will come back stronger and more powerful and a better human being and a better person for these experiences. I know he will. And I know he'll survive and thrive anywhere he goes and bring light and goodness, because that's what Mark Henry does.